So what is color? Is there a simple definition? How do we talk about it? Can we describe a color without referencing an object? Let's find out.
Cool, calm, yeah, they're just emotions really.
Quite a strong, thick colour, I'd say.
I literally don't know. Green reminds me of grass, trees, leaves, but I can't describe it without referencing to any of those.
It's quite a positive colour. Yeah, it's quite sunny.
I've always considered it sweet, delicate and sugary. That's from a catering background though.
How do you do that without saying an object?
Color. So it's hard to describe if we're not referring to it as an object, but then what does that mean? Is color real? Is it abstract? Is it just a perception? What are the underlying principles behind the color that's all around us and the vision we're using to see that color? If we talk to color scientists, they might tell us that it's simply an attribute of a visual sensation, that it has to do with light and vision and has object properties such as transmittance, reflectance, and absorption. And while that's correct, it's still a bit mysterious. So let's talk to some experts and break it down.
So, what is colour? First off, colour is an entirely human creation in a way. The way we think about colour is human. There's no inherent colour to an object. Colour is our interpretation of the radiation that we receive from an object. So when you're studying colour, you can't really neglect humanity. You need to understand how humans see colour in order to study any aspect of colour. The two are entirely inseparable. We think of colour as this inherent object attribute, but actually it is only a human interpretation of inherent object attributes. For colour to happen, you need an object with its kind of reflectance and absorption attributes. You need a light source to enable those things to mean anything, and then you need a human observer at the other end of that pipeline to actually see things. We think of a green apple as being a green apple whether we're looking at it, whether the light's on or off, but without those three components, a light source, an object, and a human observer, there is no colour.
So when we talk about light or visible light, we're talking about the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum encompasses everything from radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. This tiny section is visible light from about 400 to 700 nanometers, ranging all the colors of the rainbow, from red, the longest wavelength, to violet, the shortest. And when all of the wavelengths combine, it makes white light. When we start thinking about light as a wavelength, we can think about color as this process that occurs, where light is emitted from a source and travels to both us and an object. When it meets the object, it's either reflected or absorbed. For example, this red apple has absorbed all the colors except for red wavelengths, which is then reflected to our eye. Light enters through the pupil and is focused to the back of our eye called the retina. Here, two different types of photoreceptors exist, called rods and cones. Rods are responsible for seeing in low light, and cones allow us to see color. There are three types of cones, and each is sensitive to a specific portion of wavelengths corresponding roughly to red, green, and blue. When we were looking at the red apple, mostly the red cone was stimulated, and a signal was sent through the optic nerve to the brain, where the information was processed, and we experienced red. By combining red, green, and blue signals, it's possible to see all colors. So that just leaves us with one question. How do we communicate color without objects, and does that mean we all see color the same way?
Communication is one of the key reasons that we see in colour, to be able to go, hey, pick that red apple rather than the green apple. That's a fundamental purpose of seeing in colour. So the really neat thing about colour is that we can describe it just using 3 dimensions, just using 3 variables. We can describe the blueness to yellowness of a colour, the pinkness to the greenness of a colour, and then its brightness, which is its blackness to its whiteness. One of the first questions that people ask about colour is the blue that I see the same blue that you see? How different is our colour vision? The basic but slightly boring answer to this question is what you see is probably roughly the same. The biological differences between a normal population of colour observers are limited but well understood. That said, colour vision across the world does change in a sort of way because colour is a really strongly dependent cultural and contextual thing. It matters where you are brought up, and it matters what your lifetime of experiences to now has been.
Color is created in the brain. It's simply an awareness or perception of the world around us. It doesn't really exist in the universe. Only different types of radiation do. It's not an object, property, or thing. It's a human sensation. We create the experience of color, and it allows us to understand and interact with everything around us.